Today on Ultra Cycling Magazine Show, we do a special tribute to Nancy Guth, and then talk to Dr. Vance of Infinity Seat about crank links as well as other bike fit issues. Now, here are your hosts, Lee and Jim.
Good evening, Lee. Welcome everybody to the Ultra Cycling Magazine Show, the show about all things ultra cycling and bikes in general. How are we tonight, Lee?
We're doing pretty well, Jim, all told. It's been quite a week, hasn't it?
Oh, definitely. It's been a good week and a sad week in some respects.
Sad week, and I've had some good news and then some terrible news. So, any rate, Jim, we want to take some time out to just spend time to think and remember Nancy Guth,
Mm-hmm.
who passed away this past week.
Yes.
Maybe it wasn't expected, and then again, it was unexpected. You know what I mean?
Yep, I understand.
And it was such a shock. We're having my son Mark on the show tonight, and he was in the car with me, with my daughter-in-law, when the call came in.
Mhm.
And I know I tried to fill him in a little bit about who and the value that Nancy brought to the whole cycling world. So
Definitely.
we've got some things here to, and it may be a little harem scarum tonight if you allow us that.
Definitely.
What-
I mean, go ahead and start the tribute. Lee.
Yeah, I got something crazy going.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start the tribute.
Adam Ashwill says, "I'm very sorry to hear. She was a great woman." Andrew Welch says, "Terrible news. So sorry to hear. She was a true beacon of light." Eddie Rayford says, "So sorry to hear. Seems like I followed Nancy and John all over the U.S." Jen Magnuson says, "Nancy was a legend." Maria Parker says, "Nancy was a great cyclist and a great person. This is a loss, but I'll carry her kindness and toughness with me." Mary Florian says, "I'm so sorry to learn of Nancy's passing. She was an incredibly strong and smart cyclist, a very admirable person overall, and a leader in the ultra-cycling community. I will cherish my memories of teammate Nancy on our two-woman Ram Boomers team doing the race across America together. Prayers for John, their family, and loved ones." Mateusz Prigodzki says, "Such a loss, the legend. Our thoughts are with John and family. She will be missed." Mikael Henriksen says, "So sorry to hear that. Nancy G was such a vital part of the ultra-cycling community. She will be missed. My heart goes out to John and the family." Paul Gagnon says, "So sorry to hear this. Loved entertaining her grandchildren with my Santa portrayal when last in Maryland." Spiegel Bike says, "Our sincere condolences to John and all the Guth family and the ultra-cycling community. Sorry for this big loss." Tim Leake says, "Heartbreaking. Condolences to the entire family." Tom Buckley says, "I had the privilege of knowing Nancy for over 25 years, racing with her on Team Ram, serving with her on the UMCA board, and just enjoying her company on numerous pre-race, post-race, and during numerous races over the years. She was such an excellent example of quiet, determined strength and a true love of the sport of endurance racing. I'll miss her and her incredible spirit tremendously."
You back, Lee? You're muted.
I was getting an awful echo here. Were you?
No, didn't hear anything.
Anybody else have an echo?
Okay.
Okay.
For our,
There's something going.
go ahead. You want me to go ahead and bring our group in for the next section of the Nancy?
Yeah.
Okay, let me
Go
bring
ahead.
everybody in.
I got something going on wrong here. I don't know what it is.
Okay. Hi, Dr. Vince. Hey, Georgie. Hey, Mark.
Hi.
Hello.
We lost Georgie. Okay. So we'll go ahead and continue on, I believe, Lee. We've got some videos that you found in the archives showing Nancy and some other things. So we'll go ahead and start those, and then we'll come back after the first one.
This is Claire. I'm here with John and Nancy, also known as Bo and Babe. So you have finished Ram 6 times, and the oldest female finisher on Ram. And how many times have you done it, John?
I've been with her every time. I crew chief once, and then that's it. Then we rode the rest with you, right? Twice.
Crew chiefs twice,
Sorry,
and
it's been
rode the others. And you're here as officials this year, so you've been following.
Unofficially for this interview, we're unofficially officials.
Unofficially officials. So, so how have you found following the race rather than riding it?
Oh, it's interesting. It's really interesting. But it's another challenge.
Another challenge. And what advice have you got to anyone who's facing Wolf Creek Pass now?
I think to just bear down and go for it and put some warm clothes on.
Warm clothes on, definitely. Lovely to speak to you both. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Lee, are you back yet? I guess not. Lee's working on some issues right now. Anybody have any comments about what we just saw? Dr. Vance, Georgie, Mark?
Just, that's what she was all about. Go for it.
Yes.
That, I've only known her for a few years since they switched to our Infinity bike seats, since I've been, working with the long distance community since 2014. And, I had the privilege of also looking at her x-rays and learning about her past. Everybody knows her as this amazing mammoth of a spirit. I mean, you see how tall John is, but she just illuminates, just bigger than life. But I found out when we were talking about, when we were looking at her x-rays, that she used to break horses.
Oh, really?
I'm like, OMG.
Wow.
And she told me that, she had broken ribs. She'd been kicked into the fence by some of the horses, and she just got on with it. And that just explains the woman that she is, doing Ram 6 times, going ahead and being just a mammoth figure in the female cyclist ultra distance. Just, just amazing.
Georgie, your perspective?
Yeah, amazing. My connection dropped for a second. Sorry, guys, but I saw the last part. What a pleasure. I recently rewatched some of her past interviews, and I don't know if you guys remember, in one of those, she said she actually skipped her graduation to go and race in a TT, I mean, cycling was a huge part of her life, so this is great to see.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go to Lee.
I think I'm back with you.
Okay.
I didn't think this could happen, but I apparently got two windows open at the same time somewhere. I don't know.
Gotcha.
Okay, let's try again.
Okay.
From where you're at.
You want me to go ahead with the second video?
Yeah, well, just want to introduce my son, Mark, there. He's
Okay.
over in the next room, and I'm sorry, folks.
It's one of those weeks.
It's been a crazy week, and it's getting crazier, isn't it, Jim? Go ahead.
All right.
Tell me that story again. What happened?
I skidded on the gravel. I was forced into the gravel, and at mile 9 went over the bridge and went into the water and broke a wheel. And so I had to get taken back here. We got a wheel to use, and we want to start again.
Okay.
But we just have to add 9 miles on to our. We got picked up at mile 9. Is that okay?
Okay.
I mean,
does that work with the timer?
well, you would have to
We'll take.
that, but everybody will attest to it. I mean, the guys that brought
Oh
it.
no, that's fine. What's your name?
Nancy Guth.
Okay.
It's 709, and then my husband is 708.
709 and 08.
Yeah, I just changed
Is everyone
my
okay then?
Now,
Yeah, well,
you wound up in the river?
I wandered up. Yeah, I flipped right over the bridge, and I wound up in the river and hit my head on the river bottom. Thank God I didn't hit it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But I'm I'm probably not, but
Ellen, and I'm gonna go out anyway.
but I'm gonna go out anyway.
What's your last name again?
Guth.
Guth.
G-U-T-H.
You said 708 and 09?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
How did you get?
I was going to introduce that little clip, Jim.
Okay.
A couple things to point out there. That was that famous incident at Calvin's Challenge in what, 2015 or 16, I forget.
Correct.
I see we got a number of people watching and want to remind them, hey, if you've got a comment about Nancy, a reminder, post it on, and we'll get it up here. And maybe somebody can straighten me out on the year. But if I'd introduced the video, had I been together here, you notice she was kind of holding her chest. You notice also there was a lump right in the center of her head. And Jim, for those of you who raced in Calvin Challenge in 2025, did you notice the flag back there?
Yes.
Swooping down? Yeah. Were you there last year, Georgie? And
No, I was there at the first edition when it changed hands, but I was there in 2016. I don't know if this was 2016 from the video or maybe the year before, but I remember another story where she actually broke her thumb. I don't know if it was the same race, and then they went to the doctor and he wanted to adjust it and fix it, and she told him, you know what? It's fine. It fits my handlebars pretty well. So I thought that was pretty funny.
The situation here actually was that she, if you noticed in the video, she was actually holding her. Am I here?
Yeah, you're on, Lee.
Yep.
I think you're on the wrong mic, but we can hear you.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah, I'll change the mics here in just a moment. But she broke 2 ribs and didn't find it out until later. And what was it? 4 or 5 weeks later, did race across America.
Yes.
And the thing there at the end was interesting. The timer. She was wanting to get those 9 miles before she crashed.
Yep.
And the timer said, "Well, are you done then?" And says, "Oh, I think I'll go out again." And out again was 226 miles.
Amazing.
In 12 hours. And
wins.
Go ahead.
It goes back to what Doc was saying, how resilient and driven she was.
Yeah. No, she won that year, Lee, as well. Yep. I think the story is that she was at mile 70. She had to ride back to the start, get a wheel, go back on the course, still go over 200 and win the race, I mean.
226 and had to borrow a wheel because her wheels collapsed. And I shout out to Dr. Patty George, who was there with the group when this happened. And she goes down over the bridge. I've been there, Jim, and it's quite a little ways down.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. George went down there and checked her out. Patty's in Ireland right now, I see. But saw that she was going, okay, Jim, go ahead. And that other clip that you ran, that was our reporter, Claire O'Kane, who was reporting that year. And that was the year after she was diagnosed, and they were officials that year. And
right.
Claire caught up with them out there somewhere. Go ahead, Jim.
I think this next clip is the one from the show. I don't know if you want me to run the whole thing or just because it's like 6 minutes.
The whole show?
Yeah, it's like 6 minutes of a clip.
Yeah. Now, that one was when Mary Savage, who was our reporter with Joan and Laura and John Crawford, ran into her at Sebring, and I think it was maybe last year. Georgie, maybe you could straighten this out. Go ahead.
All right.
It's a little long, but look for the glint in her eye.
Yep.
And something happened. Yeah. Now we're live. And
hearing you, where you're not in the quietest environment.
Can you hear us? Can you hear me?
We can do some talking and stuff, and I can ask a few questions. But because we're here at the registration, and they want to make sure they're doing their best job there, we want to maybe have a minute to talk a little bit. Can you hear us?
Hello, Nancy. Hello, Nancy.
I don't think she can hear you again. Not in the quietest space, but
Well, ask her how she's doing.
Does your volume go up or not?
I have it up as far as it'll go, but as far as like, let me see and make sure that it's using the phone speak. Saying something now.
The sound gets better here.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Oh,
Yeah, we can hear you. We had to adjust the settings because it was trying to do our.
Hello, Nancy Guth. It's how good to see you.
Good to see you too. Good to see you.
And who's that other guy behind you there, Nancy?
Oh, that's my husband.
I have a name, John. Anyhow.
You have a name, John. Okay, good.
We were just taking a minute before you called to kind of learn a little bit about how John and Nancy met each other. It's actually terribly cute. I guess Nancy's never really been very good at sitting still. It's always been very active.
Can you give us that story quickly?
Say that once more time.
The story of how they met?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess Nancy was out for a run and John managed to see this cute hot thing running down the road and decided he wanted to chase after a little bit. So had to look up her number and get to know her.
And there was a horse involved too. So
Yeah,
anyhow.
Well,
and a couple dogs.
well, that sounds like a story for another time. I know you're busy there, but
She could tell you what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, I know a lot of people out there in ultra-cycling land, Nancy and John, are going to be so happy to see you folks, and so happy to see you there at Sebring.
Well, that'll be great. It'll be great to see everybody here. And we were really glad that we need a
They're getting back to their important
Okay,
jobs.
Jim, you
That's
think-
fine. That's fine.
that
This is
one off
live.
now.
That's what live is all about.
When we have a minute, I'm going to go ahead and maybe talk to Nancy a little bit. Okay, so since your husband's doing the hard work,
Yeah, that was a great clip. But thank you, Mary Savage, for being on top of that and getting that together. That was 2024 Sebring. That's the last she'd been on our show. And did Vince get to talk about 2022, what happened there?
No, not yet. We had, they sort of came up and they sort of had asked me to check her out because she is wearing two different shoes. John was a little concerned. She had her tennis shoe and her cleat shoe, but she had some previous falls that she just was losing her balance. She couldn't unclip. She didn't have power to be able to unclip. And so we were going to take a look at her, but was sort of fearful of doing any adjustments before the race. And so we just sort of tried to, check muscles. We were just sort of checking pelvis. We were checking things. And there wasn't a lot that we could do. It was shortly before the race. And so, she just persevered. And as everybody knows, kicked ass, excuse my language, in finishing Ram. So, yeah, so not a lot to say on my part, but was concerned. But as we know, she doesn't need to be worried after.
Yeah. I think we got a clip from Vic too then.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and get that one going.
Yeah, it's remarkable.
Hi, I'm Vic Armijo. I was with Ram Media from 2017 through 2024. And Lee asked me to share my memories of Nancy Guth. When I think of her, I remember an interview with Nancy and her husband John that I titled with a Nancy quote from that interview. We ride because we love to ride and we love to ride together, which is the most Nancy thing imaginable. I first met the Guths when Nancy was a member of a 2010 four-rider team. She was on 5 other Ram teams, did race across the West twice, and earned several Ram records, including the fastest two-person team in the women's 60 to 69 category, fastest two-person team in the mixed 60 to 69 category, and fastest four-person team in the mixed 70 to 74 category in 2022. And that year, she was also the oldest woman to ever finish on a Ram team. She did other events like Sebring 24 and the Hoodoo 500. The Hoodoo route was only a few miles from where I lived in Utah, so I'd go out and photograph it. And in 2019, Nancy was so surprised and excited to see me out on the course, and she just lit up. And of course, asked me if I needed anything. After the race, John and Nancy visited Zion National Park, where my wife and I worked, and we later joined them for a very nice lunch. That was the first time that my wife Kathy met the Guths, and of course she adored them both. It's so easy to love such caring and loving people. That caring extended to their crews. John once said, "We really try to take care of them and get it into them. Take care of yourselves and watch out for each other." And Nancy added to that, "We try to make it a fun experience for them." We've had wonderful stories from our crews. And that attitude carried over when they volunteered at the official Ram finish line at Ram's Head Roadhouse in Annapolis, Maryland. My media crew and I always followed the race leaders to the finish, and no matter what time we'd get there, the Guths would be there with their cool RV and would always ask me and my crew if we needed anything. The last time I saw her race was in Ram 2022 on the team seniors Tom, Jimbo, and Babe. Their finish of 8 days, 4 hours and change was faster than a few of the other four-person teams, whose members were, of course, much younger than this quartet. And in that race, Nancy became the first age 70-plus woman to complete Ram on a team. Nancy rode that race wearing one cycling shoe and one running shoe. She said, "I found out that when you get over 70, sometimes things give out." 2 days before the start, she realized she couldn't snap out of her pedal, so she rode with one flat pedal and one click-in. At the finish, George Thomas asked John how the team was able to push Nancy to keep her going through the race. John replied, "Pushing? Maybe holding her back is more what I should say, holding her back and trying to keep her from hurting herself." In closing, I'll share another quote from that 2014 interview. Nancy told me, "We love it. We really enjoy doing it together. It's something that we've shared. It's something that we learned together. That's been fun." Which really, really sums up Nancy's philosophy. I'll miss her, as I'm sure many of you watching will too. My love goes out to John and the rest of Nancy's family.
Yeah. That was, and you notice a key word there, and he kept using it over and over again, fastest, fastest, fast. We forget the fact Nancy was fast.
Yep.
She could move.
Yep. Doug's comment was he was trying to keep up with her all the time. So
yeah.
I totally understand that.
Yeah. So, Georgie, let's hear from you. You have some very keen memories of Nancy, and I appreciate you kind of getting me connected back with him, because I was a little hesitant to call him after she was sick, and I thank Georgie for that, and I tried to call him regularly after that, Georgie.
Yeah, it was tough for her, definitely, after not being physically able to do it anymore. And I went down to Stafford to visit them with John maybe a year and a half ago, and that was really the last time I saw her. But I met her in 2016 at Calvin's Challenge. Andrea from DC Randonneur, she took me over there, and both of these girls, her and Nancy, just inspired me to race. I wasn't a racer, and Nancy was unstoppable. I think that year at Calvin's, it was the last edition. It rained for 9 hours, and we were all on the podium. She won.
I remember. It did indeed.
And and everywhere you see her, she smiles. I try to smile too, even in the toughest moments. I got this from her, and how tough she is. When things get tough, how old I am. I just keep my mouth shut. I think about her, I put my head down, and I keep on going. And Lee, you can see online all these messages, especially empowering women. I know how many women really, favor everything that she has done and what she is. She lights up when she talks about cycling, and she was proud. Eventually I end up crossing 2 different continents. We will talk, and she will share stories, and it's beautiful. And just the connection between her and John, like Vic just said, John always have to tell me that the problem is pulling her back. Nancy was unstoppable. I mean, 3 days before she passed, she was riding on the trainer because she couldn't outside. And I had her on my favorite, so every time she rides on my phone, the message will pop up that she rides. And that really warmed my heart. And yeah, she was just special. She was very supportive, and she was willing to share and help anyone she could. I volunteered with them a few times at Ram's Head. I chased them when they were finishing Ram where I can nearby in I think Roosevelt, PA, and the last few time stations. And I was there when they finished that Ram, and she had one shoe. Truly inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
So just all the memories I will always cherish. They even send me cards, postcards. I felt part of the family. It's a very touching. And she had huge family, and I think she had 8 grandkids. It was her joy, and I don't even know how she did everything she did. So I will miss her, but she rides on. So
Yeah. Thank you, Georgie, and appreciate that. One of the things that we could mention about that, we want to shout out to John, our condolences.
Definitely.
He was always there. Don't kid yourself. He was a heck of a cyclist himself. But
Yep.
and you saw him in that one clip where he was behind her there. That was John to the utmost. You want to read that, Jim, from Spiegel?
Yeah, Nancy was one of the most amazing ladies I have ever met. I was very touched to meet Nancy and John in Montreal and after the races, and she touched my heart and everyone at Spiegel Bikes. Our love to John and all of her family and the ultra cycling community. Vesna.
Thank you. Good to hear from you, Vesna.
Yeah.
Okay, have we got anything else regarding? Keep on sending your comments. We'll interrupt these guys to get these comments in because I know some of you are out there. Thank you so much.
Yes.
So, with that, I think we'll get on to the agenda of the evening and
Okay.
introduce my son, Mark, who is here helping me out with some things this week. We appreciate that. And he had a question that he raised a while back, and I says, well, Dr. Vince is going to be on the show when you're here, and he's over in the family room over there, and you can raise your questions. Mark is, he just disappeared on us.
Is your family room still there?
It's one of those evenings. He could come in and take my chair, I guess.
There you go.
Mark, they're getting ready to go to Florida, but they keep delaying it every time they read a weather report. They say, "Can we stay another day? Can we stay another day?" And so I don't know if they're going to get to Florida or not, but we're delighted to have them. Mark, are you there? You can come over here. I'll just let you have my chair.
Yeah. Let's bring Dr. Vincent real quick and let him say hello and explain what he does.
Mark?
Dr. Vince, thank you for being here and answering all of our questions. And again, anybody out there watching, if you have a question pertaining to crank arm length or bike fit or anything that you think Dr. Vince might be able to help, ask it for us and post it for us. So, Dr. Vince, thank you again.
Thanks for having me.
What kind of things do you do?
My background is I'm licensed chiropractor here in the state of California and been a triathlete as well for the last 30 years. And so marrying both of them together, we run a sports medical center, allowing people, we deal with athletes, and we run a hyperbaric chamber in our facility. But for me, I was always interested, I've been looking for a seat and could never find a seat that would be comfortable enough for me to be able to ride any amount of distance, let alone 112, to do a full Ironman. And so my wife, 15 years ago, after I got ran off the road, injured 3 discs in the neck, she said, well, you should invent this bicycle seat. So we added that as another thing into our portal of things of doing. And in 2014, I met a gentleman named Michael McClintock, who had tried doing Ram 2 years previously and had to bow out after 2,300 miles and because of saddle sores. And I first time ever hearing Ram, and so he was doing it again in 2014, and so he ended up on the dock with no saddle sores, and we knew we had a definite winner, and so ever since then we've been, um, supporting and helping ultra distance athletes as well as triathletes, and constantly finding out the nuances that affect how we sit, how we are in the cockpit, and what's happening in between with our pedals and our gear. So that little triangle of figuring out where those pressure points and how to maximize power. And that's one of the things that we're going to sort of talk about today, dealing with crank links.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. I'll go ahead and bring everybody back up here. And Mark, you're back. You want to go ahead and give us a question for Dr. Vince?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. And Dr. Vince, this is great to have the opportunity to pose a question directly to you. I was so impressed when you were on talking about how to deal with numbness in the hands, and that was very helpful to us.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah, it was. Both my wife my wife Sherry and I are avid tandem riders, just like Jim and his significant other.
Yep.
And and so we do all kinds of bike tours every year, and we do everything from bike packing to touring trails and road and riding around the lakes, the Great Lakes, and across country, lots of stuff like that. We're not ultra cyclists by any means, but
cyclists.
but we love riding, back to back 50, 60 mile days kind of thing. So
beautiful.
Yeah. And it's great to have, Jordan here. So, he could, as a ultra cyclist, he can chime in too. So anyway, there's been several kind of things happening over the past couple of years, as you guys know, sort of trends with new ideas in cycling. And one of them is crank arm length.
Huge.
And there's a couple others I guess we could have another show about maybe. But for crank arm length, there's the pros lately, a lot of them have been going to shorter and shorter crank arms, some pretty drastic.
Mm-hmm.
And my understanding is the reason they're doing is, for a couple of them, is they talk about aerodynamics, and be able to hold a position longer. And
Right.
then the other thing, which doesn't really necessarily apply to us, sometimes on a tandem you go pretty fast though, especially downhill, is turns, right? So you can pedal through a turn.
Right.
But I'm interested in particular because I've got knee damage, my left knee, I've got cartilage damage. And I've been riding with that for a long time now.
Yep.
And I still use the same crank arm length I did when I raced when I was younger. And at 175s. And
right.
My wife is actually quite a bit shorter than me, and she's on 170s. And anyway, so I wanted to get your opinion on that. What does it mean to go to a shorter crank arm? Is it, is it for everybody? And just get your general thoughts on that to start with.
That is a really great question. I thank you very much for that. So let's just sort of talk about I've been having this conversation with Marco since 2016 on shorter cranks. And, as you said, back in the day, 175s, bigger arm, more torque. But as we get older, do we have the same muscle power when that muscle gets stretched out as we did when we were 20, 30, 40, 50 as we get older? And the answer is no. So the question is, if we have 2 points, if we both start on a racetrack and we both start at the same point and we go around that racetrack and we come back at the same pace, who's going to be there first? The person on the inside or the person on the outside?
Oh, inside.
Inside, of course, because it's shorter distance, right? So the biggest thing, we're really not just only talking about crank length, but we're talking about chain ring. We're talking that front chain ring. We're talking about, you look at the professionals. The difference in the professionals is they've been doing it since they were kids, and they're in the 20s and 30s, right? And they have the ability to make sure what's happening from 12 to 6 on left and right of how to deliver engage that power like this. The biggest thing that we have that we don't understand is that if you have a bigger crank arm and you're trying to push that as you get older, you don't have the same power inside that muscle to contract. No difference than if we go to the gym now and we tried back in the day, we were doing 65 or 75 pounds in our curls. Now we're doing maybe 45, 55 more comfortably, right? So if I can go ahead and shorten that crank arm a little bit, I'm going to get around, not just around, but through the dead spot. A lot of people talk about, so we have the dead spot from 11 to 1, and then at the bottom from 5 to 7. If I can get that crank arm a little bit over the top faster, it's going to allow that scrape at the bottom where we know we generate most of the power is in the push phase. If I can go ahead and get around quicker at the top, which I say first gear and then second gear, that means my ability, my wattage is going to go up. If I try to just, this is what I've used and I'm going to keep using what I use, and okay, great. But don't be frustrated if you go, but I also want to go faster. So now I'm going to go throw some 40, some 50, some 60 deep wheels on there to be more aerodynamic. I'm going to go ahead and put ceramics on there. I'm going to go ahead and do all different things to try to go faster. And the biggest thing is really understanding self. And if you could go ahead, so if I put a smaller crank arm, there's a difference. How low can I go, right? So if you'd be amazed when we do testing in the office of what, so for so many years, 2.5 millimeters is not going to make that big of a difference. You got to do at least 5. That's from, 30 years of doing this, from the dozen fits that I've had. You got to do 5. You're not going to notice any difference. Malarkey. So it's not only 2.5 millimeter difference, but it's 2.5 millimeters on the whole circle at the top and the bottom. So you're going to notice a considerable, and not only that, but you're going to notice that your myosin and actin fibers of your hamstring, your quadricep, your glutes are not going to have to be as stretched. So they're going to be a little tighter, which is helping them conserve energy, which is going to allow that, give you that, what you had yesterday. It's going to give you a little bit more explosiveness because I'm going to be able to conserve my watt. I'm going to be able to conserve energy, which is going to allow me to have more explosivity at the top of that stroke. That makes sense a little bit, or is that too deep?
Yeah, that was sort of one of my questions. The ancillary question was about power, right?
Yeah.
So we're on the tandem, we're fully loaded, we're camping, and we hit that 20% grade. It's only 100 feet, but am I going to be able to pedal through that still? Right.
That's exactly that. That 175 crank, you got to push through that top. You'd be amazed at what happens at 172.5 for you. Since you've been running 175s forever, I just got Marco. He started using 170s, and I've known for so long, he's had hot spots in his heel. And so he's tried to do all these other adjustments, as Georgie knows, with a midfoot cleat and everything else. But that hot spot started coming back up again. So all of a sudden, shifting down to a smaller crank allowed him not to overcontract the calf muscle, so it didn't pull on the Achilles tendon that pulled onto the heel. So as that turnover, now you're also going to be able to have a quicker turnover in your pedal stroke, which is going to go ahead and flush the lactic acid out of the muscle, which allows for more oxygenation, which allows your ATP to go ahead and have that boost of power again. So those are that's a really big component when we're talking here, for example. So I've got a crank arm here. If we go ahead and we look, so not only on just the crank arm from 11 to 1, what you're doing is really understanding what the shoe is doing. So we could talk about crank lengths, but more important, what just as important is looking at your shoe. Okay. So often we buy these really nice shoes, and I don't mean to do anything. This is not a dig on Specialized. It's looking at the cable theory, that where that cable is coming across the tendon of the top of your foot. So when you try to go ahead and come through that stroke, it has that pressure, and what it does, it naturally protects. So you lose that control of your foot as you come through. So you raise your heel higher through that area. So now your thigh comes up into your diaphragm a little bit farther, which then causes you to rock a little bit more. So it's sort of it's working with making sure that you have the right shoe that doesn't cause a threat to cellular tissue in the foot and the ankle, as well as making sure the crank length for your body and to be able to propel more power. So 170. So what size front ring are you running right now?
Oh boy, that's a good question. I think it's just a standard like 52.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these are all little things that you could start to look at, because if I could go ahead and have a quicker turnover here in my cranks as I'm delivering power, that means I'm in the back, I'm going to be dropping down a cog or two, which is going to go ahead and allow me to have that turnover. So it's not just going to a shorter crank. Maybe it's a possibility of running a 50-34, a subcompact on there to be able to have that turnover as well, right? Especially if you're doing flats, yes, you're going to have a bigger ring. And we know that our bikes, we can set them up. And that's why in the endurance race, you'll have multiple bikes for different things. So if you know a course is going to have a steep hill, you're going to have a 15+% grade on there, then let's go ahead and run. Maybe it's a subcompact with a 48-36 on there. So that way you can be running down lower cogs in the back, which is going to allow you to have that momentum to be able to deliver some watts as you're pushing through those pedals. So gearing and crank length all play in together, as well as function and understanding. So understanding what your body's able to put out. And so you see the computer system behind me is a Surface EMG, and we're able to check along the spine when we check our patients, when we do a fit here, we're able to check for nerve distribution. I think we did that with you, Georgie, when you were here.
Yep.
Right? So
We sure did. Yep.
have nerve supply coming out of the spinal system is going down into the legs. So that's another component that you can't see. But I would, as an experienced, passionate cyclist, you'd be amazed at what 2.5 could do. And especially, how tall is your wife?
She's 5'3", 5'4", and I'm 6'3".
Okay. And so you'd be amazed at what would happen if you went from just 2 millimeters down difference. And a lot of people, well, I'm going to spend $150, $200 for a new crank set. Why don't I just go ahead and take the extra 5? You could, or you know what, is trying to find a fitter that's got an adjustable setup that could go ahead and measure. They make these little kits that you can also buy. And I'll have Georgie or have somebody. It's gosh, I forgot the name, but they have things that you can actually put onto your pedals and you can make the adjustments. And it's really not that much. I'll find that. I'll get that to Lee and he'll be able to share it. Huh? What, Georgie?
No, I was going to have a follow-up question. Keep going.
Yeah. So they have these little adjustments that you can put onto your own cranks so you can determine how you're feeling from either that 2.5 or a 5 millimeter difference. When you were talking about the pros, they've got these massive young engines that are able to push a 165 with a 53, a 56 front ring because they're young and explosive like we all were at one time, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But I mean, if we go back to the crank lengths, I have a big thing to share. The biggest thing that I see all too often in the ultra, you know what, before I start rambling on, Georgie, what's your question?
Oh, no, it's kind of related to what was just mentioned. I was going to ask if the size of the rider matter. And I'm coming from where the pros, obviously, the trend is always from the pros and the pro peloton. You can't really compare it with ultra cycling, age, and so on. I know Jonas Vingegaard, for example, he might be riding below 160, but there's riders like Wout van Aert. He's refusing to go below 172.5. And I know the teams do testing, they have money. So I was wondering why 172.5 could be still better for Wout van Aert, or maybe he's not willing to adjust. Or
because there's a portion
better.
There's something that happens. So I was like, shorter better. And then I went all the way down to a 165 on my TT bike. But there's a portion what happens is you'll spin out. And with the gearing, So my sweet spot on a TT bike is going to be a 167.5. Van Aert is a powerhouse. He's a beast, right? And so his
Tall guy.
right? He's tall. So, but just as we were saying, Mark, that going instead of that 2.5 millimeters, but here's a guy that's able to hold 400 watts easily,
Forever,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So, but for us average, if we're holding 250, or 200, whatever we're holding, but if a 2.5 millimeter, that means that's 2.5 at the top and 2.5 at the bottom. So, as what is my muscle structure and how the body is able to deal with that shortness of the crank. So I would say just for trying, I'll get that to Lee. I'll get that little kit that I bought that you can put onto your pedals, and then you can go ahead and thread your pedals into the 2.5. But it's really trying to measure, looking at watts. So I'm always telling people when they come in here, you on your trainers, you want low RPMs. You want about 60, anywhere from between 60 to 70 RPMs. You don't want to be maxing out. You want 60 to 70 RPMs, and you want to maintain maybe 120, 150 watts. And you just want to see what happens in technique. And so now you can really see what happens when holding a certain wattage and looking at how the easeability of what happens when you drop down to a 172.5 or a 170 crank. And sometimes you'll notice the effort. You'll notice how your body, and can you then notice if you're in maybe your gear 18 in the back with a 175 and you're maintaining that 150 watts and you're noticing you're doing 17 miles an hour, what happens when you go into a 172.5 and then all of a sudden you drop down into one gear down, and all of a sudden you notice your watts start to go up, but with the same effort. That's where it gets really interesting. And we see that over and over and over again. We just had a lady that just came in and she literally boosted 25 watts to her power. She did a sub 3 at La Quinte ride, and she was just over the moon with it. So really big on looking at those components.
Okay.
Since you brought up shoes, real quick, Mark, what about midfoot cleat position along with crank arm? Does that make a difference?
It does, because I mean you're moving that shoe so far forward, and so now as Marco's attests, it's skill. You're really coming up, you're really changing, and I believe that sometimes what I see all too often is we're augmenting for pain, and all too often the biggest, to add on to the midfoot cleat first, is people adjust their seat to the handlebars, but then they throw off their whole power mechanism because the bike's too big when they're reaching out. So when talking to Marco, he find it more comfortable because it solved a problem that he had dealing with foot pain, but then the foot pain came back. And so is it dealing with, we don't know. I don't have enough evidence or of studies to be able to show you midfoot cleat or no midfoot cleat.
Right.
All I can tell is that if you have an issue, did we get to the core reasoning of that issue? So if you think about it, maybe I'm going to go ahead and have a better motion through, but you're changing that power point. So I just see, how do I maintain and delivering power? So do it because it gives you more power, not because you're trying to go ahead and solve a pain issue.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha. Mark, you had a question to follow up?
Just a quick comment on what you were saying before. I've noticed as I get older, I do have more trouble stretching that Achilles tendon, I feel that more as riding than I used to. So definitely.
Yeah, and I would almost, I see this so often. And I do this, when people come in, and George has probably seen me. I put my regular shoes on, I get on his bike, and all of a sudden I go in, I show how the CompuTrainer, and I'm not clipped in. So technique is so vital. People come to get a fit. I said technique trumps the fit.
Yep.
If I don't have a good pedal technique, if I'm just focusing on making circles, if I'm just focusing scraping the mud off the shoe, most people don't know what's happening at the top of that dead spot, that first gear where they need to be setting up, because they don't know where their foot is in space behind them, because a lot of people do outdoor riding, and they, especially here in California, oh, I don't like the trainer. Well, they say hate, but I say they're too nice to hate anything. But I say, do you have a mirror in front of you? No. Why do I have a mirror? I got my TV going on, keep me entertained while I'm on the trainer. It's like, no, the TV's got to be off, the radio's got to be off, because you got to be focusing on your pedal teak. It's that scrape, it's the lift, it's engaging that first toe on the lift, so you have the tibius anterior muscle that keeps your heel dropped. So as you lift, it's setting up the foot to be able to maximize that power, whether you have a short crank or a long crank. But if my shoe is putting pressure on that tendon, what's going to happen is, as I go through this area, my heel is going to come up, because as I have my lower leg coming out of here, if I bind that too much, then that cable digs into the tendon at the top of my foot. And so a quick way, we all have loved ones. So if I do go on the bike, people go, oh, I'm going to put in a 4-hour, 6-hour, 10-hour training ride indoors. It's wintertime. Guess what? Have a loved one come down, do a little slow-mo video of seeing how you're doing the first hour, second hour. And the reason being is because what is your body doing during that duration on the trainer? Are you just having repetitive motion of an improper pedal stroke, and you're just putting in mileage and trying to go ahead and put in watts, and you're trying to go ahead and do all this training? But what is the body doing with the setup? What's the crank lengths? What's my muscle activity able to do? What are the nutrients that I'm putting into my body? So with the crank lengths, with the shoe, the big other component that I'm always talking to people is having some sort of footbed that goes inside your shoe. Because your arches, I see if you walk, if your feet drop in, this is not just because so many people are focusing on putting, shims in between their cleats and their shoes because they have a slight inversion, and they're doing all those things. I like, if you have the original insert inside your shoe, that's just a little paper thing. It has no support. And so a footbed is not a orthotic. It's a pelvic stabilizer. If I'm pedaling and my feet drop in, then my knees go ahead and counter in, which changes what they call the Q angle of the way my femur and my tibias ride, which puts more pressure onto the hips, which is going to change that pressure onto the tailbone, onto your sacrum. So now it's going to affect the nervous system and the floor of the pelvis. So by supporting your arches, you're going to be able to deliver proper power through the pedals with a proper cranking, and with the proper shoe to give you and maintaining that pedal stroke. So all of these are key components when looking at delivering power and going ahead and having that right crank length.
So
Can I interrupt here for just a second?
Yeah, Lee.
Yeah. First of all, anybody tuning in and seeing Lee Kreider there at the top are going to wonder what happened.
I found a fountain of youth.
I shaved.
Found a fountain of youth.
Anyhow, Dr. Vince, if you'll get me links, someone wanted to know about that device for the pedal adjustment.
Yeah.
You get me those information.
Yeah, I will.
And we'll get that on next week's show and have links there for people to find that. And anything else there, I think I was interested in those shoe inserts. That's been on me.
So it's so important. I mean, I see so much, and so there's a couple things that we do in our practice when we look at a shoe insert. Is that shoe inserts? Back in the day, you went skiing, you went ahead and had inserts inside your boots. So we should have them in our bike shoes, but you should also be wearing them inside your regular shoes. Because you want to re-educate your arches. You're going to increase the neuromuscular memory through your legs as you're walking inside your regular shoes. So very, very important to go ahead and be able to put these in. And the nice thing is, I used to make custom orthotics that were $300, $500, and now you can have the pair. And usually a pair of footbeds should last you about a season. I try to change it, and they're only they're like 40 some odd bucks. So you have two pair, you have them for the season, and you can change them in and out of your other shoes. So it's just a really great way of making sure that you're delivering equal power through the pedals and through the cranks, which is, I mean, your engines to the transmission. But here's a, if I could go back, was there any other questions that you want to share?
Well, when you're done, I'd like the follow on is okay. I make this change 2.5 or 5 millimeter change myself.
Yeah.
Anybody else who's listening? How does that affect the rest of my bike fit? Is there anything else I need to be adjusting?
Well, that will be so. If you had a, how can I say this? If you had, just because I learned that I can't assume anything. Somebody goes, "Oh, I had a professional bike fit."
Yeah.
Okay. I just had a guy, Brian, and he had a professional bike fit, but the person has never done a triathlon, has never done any type of endurance event, so he doesn't know what cyclists are going through and understanding the body. So when I say the average fitter will tell you, well, if you're shortening your crank by 2.5, you need to raise your seat post 2.5. But I can almost guarantee you 90% of the cyclists out there already have their seat too high.
Yep.
Whether it be the binding on the shoe, whether the possibility of where they're set up on the bike.
Yeah.
So if we go with that thought for a second and we look at your crank length, and we're talking about that dead spot at the top from 11 to 1 in that process, from here on a road bike, but to go into this portion from 11 to 12, depending on the size crank from 165 to 175, it can be a difference of a half inch from a 165 to a 175, almost a whole inch. So most people have their seat posts way too high because the crank arms are too long and they feel like they're too squatty at the top of the stroke. So what they do is they raise the seat up, but then when they get to the bottom of the stroke, they have to go ahead and counterbalance, and they start to rock. They start to straddle inside the seat, and they start to get saddle sores, start to get stuff. So first of all, we need to look, and we want about a 150-degree leg angle. You want your foot at the bottom of the stroke, and we have these setup videos on our website, infinitybikeseat.com, that takes you through steps 1 through 6 of understanding your cleat position, looking at leg angle. But there's a guy, and I'll send Lee the pictures. There's a one-legged cyclist out of Brazil, and he is crushing it. And if you look at his leg angle, he's like a 140 because he needs to master and able to have that explosive power to be able to deliver through. So if you look at his leg angle, he's like squatty. He's like 140 almost. And his deliverance of power, he's keeping up with everybody that has two legs.
Right.
And I was just watching some of the Down Under tour, and you see some of the professional cyclists that are also keeping probably a 146 and 144 leg angle as well. So I'm like sort of nerd, and I sort of put everything on slow motion. I'll record everything, and I watch some of these great athletes. So if we take their knowledge and bring it over to us as passionate cyclists, there's a lot to learn to help us improve, not become pros, but to be able to enjoy the process and the technique of being out on our bikes.
Definitely.
Hey, Jim, we need to have him back again. That's like what we said the last time.
Oh, I know. I mean, we could talk all night because I've got 1,000 questions, and a lot of them are geeky, and I don't want to get into them right now. But the one question I do have real quick.
Yeah, give me one geeky question.
No, not really geeky, but coming from a road bike, we're both fit on our road bikes, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now we're riding a tandem together.
Right.
Is there a specialized tandem fit that we need to think about, especially if we go changing crank arm lengths, because we're working together instead of independently?
Yeah, I think, that's a great question. And again, so, we were talking about Mark with the longer cranks.
Right.
When we're going uphill, that's a greater possibility of having side-to-side motion when we're getting through that dead spot because we're not able to turn that crank over. So again, from a perspective of doing tandems, a shorter crank length is going to create less instability, less X factor of energy from side to side, when you get a crosswind, when you go ahead and have a incline. I was just reading on GCN.
Yep.
They said a 1 degree incline from flat, you use 25% of your energy to go ahead and get through your pedal stroke.
Wow.
And then they went ahead and said if anything over 15 degrees, you're using 95% of your energy to get through that pedal stroke.
Gotcha.
So
Wow.
if I can go ahead and as we're maturing, if I can go ahead and take all my passion, all my neuromuscular energy and really compact it. And this is sort of like, what do we do when we see some people at the gym that are doing curls and they're doing this thing? They're trying to do the same weight that they did when they were 30 years old, and now they're 60 or 70. But if they lowered their weight, they'd be able to have that form that they had when they were 30 years old. Right? So it's not, you're not going, oh, I'm getting old and I've got to go to a smaller crank. No, you're getting more mature and you're using your brain power to be able to understand how to maintain that youthful, lively experience of being a passionate cyclist.
Gotcha.
Very good.
And here's my geeky question. Knowing that you use spin scan and stuff, is there proof on the spin scan about the short or the crank arm length?
No, there isn't.
There isn't. Okay, I was just curious.
No, but well, let me take that back. How could you determine?
You really can't.
Is by looking, and I see this. So what I do when I geek out is how can I use this CompuTrain? It doesn't tell me exactly what a shorter crank length will do, but what it will do, it will show you your ATA, your average torque angle.
Yep.
Can that average torque angle change by going ahead and having a shorter crank? Or more so, what is happening at the outside of that? Can I make a nice, smooth transition through that area? Because it's going to show you as you're going through your pedal stroke, through the push and the pull, because we know the top is going to be the center where it opens up.
Right.
And there's lots of people that, don't think anything about CompuTrainers. And, I'm not here to dispute that. All I'm here to say, it's another tool that shows me where I'm delivering power at what portion, as we talked about the average torque angle,
right,
where I'm delivering power. If I can go ahead and have a smoother portion of my pedal stroke with a shorter crank as I'm maturing, that's going to go ahead and give more efficiency through my dead zones, which allows me to go ahead, as we talked about, that 1% plus or a headwind or a crosswind to have more stability and less X factor of energy from side to side.
Yep. I totally agree. I was just curious. Yeah. And I gained a lot of muscle memory and stuff using power cranks. I don't even know if they're still around. The ones that are both hang low and you got to make the circles. Yep. So
those are great, right?
Yep.
So there's just lots of things, and in the ultra distance world, we see so many people that are trying to make one bike do two things.
Right.
And what I see all too often is that if you're they put on clip-on bars to give them another position to hang, but then you close down your hip angle because your pelvis is too far back. And then you're running a 172 or 175 crank. And as you come up that 1 inch, you're going to go ahead and causing more rock. You're going to cause more issue inside and getting saddle sores if you're using a traditional saddle.
Yep.
So, and Georgie's heard it, and a lot of other people have heard it maybe it's not, you don't need my infinity seat. Maybe we can go ahead and figure out, I have some people that come in and go, we did this with, who was it? George and what's the people that, I forgot her name. Anyways, I went ahead and said, before you buy a seat, let's go ahead and get some shorter cranks. You need some shorter cranks so that we can have a turnover. And so I'll make suggestions and say, okay, now we really got to work on that pedal technique. So let's work on pedal technique. Let's work on the crank length, and let's go ahead and revisit in 6 to 8 weeks. We'll do another refit and then see how you're doing before we get the seat. And because if you get a new seat, put new cranks on, go ahead. There's a lot to change from a neuromuscular standpoint. And so people are like, well, don't you want to sell me a seat? I go, I don't. Yes, we all need money, but I don't need the money to sell a seat. I want you to be comfortable. And if the more I understand what's causing you to have some of your issues, then maybe all of a sudden you'll feel more comfortable while you're out there.
And be on the bike more, definitely, yes.
Right.
Let's get to some of the viewers' questions before
All right.
we got one out here from Glenn. We have your E3 seat and could use extra padding while cycling. We were looking at the neoprene seat cover. Question is, will the cover stay in place while cycling? Any design details would help.
Okay. Yeah, we came out with some covers because we have some just loyal people that have been using, the Infinity seat, and they have put on 30, 40, 50,000 miles. And unfortunately, the leather's taken a beating, and they're going, we love the seat, but I'm not ready to spend another $300 or something. So we have we have the neoprene, the 1/4 inch that people have been able to put on there. I also have had people that said, I was so bummed. I put my bike up against the wall, and all of a sudden it slid down and scuffed the leather. So we have the 1/8 inch that deals with that cover. But yes, the pad will stay in place while cycling. So if it's just but before buying a cover, again, it's not just a better mousetrap. The question is, my question is, this person that's asking that question, where do they feel the pain? If they feel the pain underneath their pelvis on the pubic rami, if you feel that pain on the pubic rami and you feel that you need more padding, I can guarantee you that your seat is too far back, which is going to go ahead. The seat is too far back because what's taking place is you go, I'm really good for the first hour or two, and then I start to notice some pressure. And the reason being is because my latissimus muscle attaches from the small of my back and attaches to the front of my shoulder, but it's connected to my pancreas, which produces insulin to go ahead and draw the sugar into the cell. And as I start fatiguing, the lats tighten up, which then bring me forward, and I can't move the seat forward, so I can't bring the cockpit back, so I bring my body farther on the seat. And so instead of sitting in the sweet spot of the seat, what I do is I slide up right onto that pubic rami as you come right into this portion of the seat. So if you're feeling pressure there, I would be looking more so at making an adjustment to my seat and seeing where my landing so I can be sitting in the sweet spot of this area. That's where my suggestion, more so than just putting another pad on, or the possibility of also looking at the seat height.
There you go. Excellent. Vlad was saying wants a link for Bike Fit. He has 3 Infinity saddles, and I'd like to do for adjustment. And like Lee said, we'll have those in the show notes, and we'll have links.
And have it available probably on our next show.
Yep.
We'll put the link in there. And I want to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Vince and Diane for their wonderful help with our campaign for World Bicycle Relief. We were talking about that before we went on the air. They donated a seat. Mr. and Mrs. Skydog in Denmark got it. I assure you, I talked to them. They have it. They're happy with it. And that we went way over our goal. I think we're going to actually double it. And so thank you. You made that happen for us, Dr. Vince, and we appreciate that.
Always a pleasure. And anywhere we can both help, we appreciate that.
Yeah. And but we do got to have them back, Jim. And I want to just announce while we're here, I didn't get this all got crazy at the beginning. Next week, we're going to have Josh Haley on. He is starting a new brevet, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Cleveland. And there you go. Georgie, put that in your calendar. And will it ever be another LEL or PVP? Probably not, but we're glad to see people doing stuff here in Ohio. And he's going to be on the show next week talking about that.
All right.
Just a quick thing. There's a guy that's asking. He has still 175s on his road bike, and I had Matthew out of where's he out of Utah, I believe. So he's been doing a whole bunch of riding and on a road bike, a TT bike, and his recumbent. He has so when you have a 165 and a 175, I would try to go ahead and being that because we, on a recumbent they'll use a shorter crank because sometimes they're depending on the length of their legs, the knee will start to hit the handlebars of where they're holding. So they'll go to a shorter crank to go ahead and make for easeability. But that can also sort of, even though you have a different pedal position on a recumbent than you on a road bike, it's still the motion that you're pushing out. So sometimes going from a 170 crank down to a 172 or 175, so there's not such a big difference from the size from 165 to 175. So that's my suggestion when looking at this. See, I drive downtown.
You got a fan there.
Mr. Eugene Bernowski.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, listen, we do got to bring this in, but we will have you back, and Mark and I will maybe get back in our backs for the right spots. so crazy, and we'll thank you so much, Dr. Vince, for all the information and help, and in so many ways. Jim.
Well, my pleasure as always, Lee.
Definitely.
Don't go away. We'll chat with you.
Yeah, and if anybody has any follow-up questions, put them out there in the comments, and we'll make sure Dr. Vince gets
them here. And we'll
you can go ahead and reach me at Dr. Vince of Dr. Vince of OF Infinity at gmail.com.
Definitely. All right. Well, hang on, guys, and we'll be right back.
This is Gregory Zuber, thanking you for watching and sharing.
Music by Kevin MacLeod.